Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, no rematch between Gervonta Tank Davis and Lamont Roach. Of course those two guys fought earlier this year, and it was a controversial draw. Most people felt Lamont Roach won, was robbed of a knockdown of course. And that fight was the fight that was speculated to take place for the longest time. In fact, I even think it was scheduled at one point, and then it fell through. I think it was because Tank got arrested, maybe. Again, you guys might have to jog my mind on that. But yeah, that was the fight that was being talked about, and that was the fight that was supposed to happen just in terms of what was right, you know? Because of what happened in that first fight. Lamont Roach getting a bad end of a deal, getting robbed, etc. So, you know, anybody who has an ounce of pride or, you know, professional pride would want to right that wrong, right? And get back into that rematch and show us what you can do. But Tank Davis has opted against that. Instead, he's going to be fighting Jake Paul in an exhibition fight on November the 14th on Netflix. God help us. Absolute slop. Slop of the highest order. This is what boxing has become. You know? This is what boxing has become. It started, of course, with the whole YouTube boxing scene, which in and of itself is not a problem, but a couple of those influencer fighters quickly became kind of half involved in pro boxing, half involved in influencer boxing. And we saw promoters like Eddie Hearn get involved in that. Even Frank Warren having his fighters on undercards of YouTubers like Daniel Dubois. So the mainstream promoters kind of opened the door to these guys. And then, of course, Turki Al-Sheikh was also putting on freak show fights of a different variety. You know, Fury Ngannou, AJ Ngannou, etc. It's been normalised. These type of events have been normalised by the power brokers in boxing, the mainstream promoters, and, you know, boxing's biggest sugar daddy, Turki Al-Sheikh. And this is where we are. You know, we're missing out on fights that should happen in favour of this nonsense. And yeah, trust Netflix to be the broadcaster for this fight. Trust Netflix. Does it make you feel any different about Canelo versus Crawford? You know, I'm still not looking forward to that fight in the slightest. I tried to, get myself to get interested in that fight, but again, it's slop, really. It's a big fight on paper, and it will do good numbers, obviously, but it's a fight that wasn't organically asked for by boxing fans. You know, it's just two big names in a bit of a unique situation facing off. But was it on the fight fans list of fights that they really wanted to see? Probably not. Not for most people, including myself. And that fight in and of itself just reeks of manufactured slop is how I would put it. Yeah, I'm not impressed with Netflix at all, and their foray into boxing. Obviously, they did Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Say no more. They've been involved on the female boxing side of things. Say no more. That's the only good thing about Netflix, actually. They've taken a lot of female fighters away from, main major boxing cards. So they're kind of stuck on one place, so we don't have to see them. That is one positive of Netflix, I guess, but I'm kind of scraping the barrel there. But yeah, absolute rubbish. Jake Paul versus Tank Davis. Do you think Tank Davis could be a good boy? Because, you know, he's been having legal problems. Is he going to throw it? What's going to happen? What's the script going to be for Jake Paul versus Tank Davis? What's the script going to be? Do you reckon Tank's going to lay down? What's going to happen there? What an absolute joke. Boxing in 2025, man, for the most part, has been AIDS. There's been a couple of good fights, couple of good cards, like Beterbiev versus Bivol 2, for example. Usyk, once again winning undisputed, was pretty good. But for the most part, it's been pretty rubbish. It's like boxing is turning into WWE. That's what it's like. Well, I mean, they are more closely aligned to boxing now than they ever have been on the business side. But, you know, obviously with, Netflix partnering with WWE, Netflix now getting involved in boxing, TKO being owned by the company who own WWE and the UFC. Oh, it's not looking good, guys. It's not looking good. And yeah, this is just another embarrassment to boxing as far as I'm concerned. For Tank Davis to be taking this fight goes to show where his head is at. It goes to show where his level of ambition is at. But because ultimately, Gervonta Davis has always been... He's always been one of those fighters who's taken from boxing, but he's given nothing back. Yeah, at one point he looked like a precocious talent. Well, he was very talented, but he's coasted for the best part of 10 years now. Again, given nothing back to the fans whatsoever. Ducked fights for the best part of a decade. But this is the problem with boxing, you know, a lot of the boxing fan base really is the lowest common denominator, because if they weren't, they wouldn't give life to guys like Tank Davis. They would ostracize him. You know, they wouldn't watch his fights. But no, you know, he still has countless fans capping for him and making excuses for him and fanboying for him. Happy that he fights 10-1 underdogs in every single fight, more or less. I mean, even the last fight, which turned out to be better than we expected against Lamont Roach. Roach was a huge underdog. Nobody was asking for that fight. And it nearly backfired on Tank. Maybe that's why he's taking this fight. Maybe he's realised he's coasted long enough now to where he really has stagnated as a fighter. And he's only going downhill from here. Maybe that's why he's taken this fight. So he's robbed boxing for 10 years, pro boxing. And now that gravy train may be drying up. He's onto the influencer circuit. You know, everything we have said about Tank Davis for the last 7, 8, 9 years has been correct. And all of those guys out there, maybe some of you are watching this video, all of you guys who have been capping for this guy for the last 10 years, and, you know, calling people like me haters when I talk about Tank, apologise in the comments and make it sincere. Grovelling ideally. Imagine supporting this guy for the best part of 10 years. Absolute cancer on boxing. An absolute cancer. I blame him more than Jake Paul. As well as his fanboys, of course, as well. But yeah, man, welcome to boxing in 2025. Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul. Exhibition on Netflix. There we have it. Christ. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Peace.